here? Anybody was here? Dhammapada. I understand that he gives the story. Yes. So where is he to tell the story? Well, you can come in. Those of you behind, can you hear? Can please come in. There are many chairs inside here because I'm very deep. So after that, the disciples begin to, in order to explain to others, the disciples, in order to make others understand, they comment on those stories, what the Buddha taught. And then later on, the disciples make further commentary. And in the process of further commentary, they add in their own ideas. That is how now Buddhism, there are all kinds of stories now. So, he's coming there, nobody, no umbrella, no. Come. Where's you can pass on to somebody else. Yes. Come. You can pick this one.
Good evening to everybody, Venerable Sir. Today I am going to tell you another story from Dhammapada, because every Friday I was trained to tell like this. So today I will tell you a very nice story. I think Chief already told this story earlier, but it is very good. Mano Tubbangama Dhamma, Mano Setta Manomaya, Manasache Pasanyena, Bhasativa Karotiva, Tattonang Sikkamangeti, Chayava Anapayani. Mind is forerunner of all good states. If one act according to a good thought, it follows, this happiness follows like a shadow that never leaves us. The Buddha has uttered these verses in Dhammapada, first one about evil and second one about happiness. After uttering these beautiful verses, he has delivered a beautiful story to them on that day. He saw an incident and then he told about that story. During that time, There was a young Brahmin, his name Matta Kundali. Matta Kundali was a very young Brahmin, young boy. The father was a millionaire. Very sad to listen to this story because what the father done. He was a millionaire. He was a millionaire. When he came to know his son was suffering from jaundice. Jaundice is a sickness. It's very suffering. When the father came to know, since he only liked love is charity, what is property, his possession, his wealth. He never bothered his only one son. He never bothered. For him, money, wealth, and rich is very important. So he ignored his only son. When this son was suffering and was very serious, you know what happened? Where the house, front house, the veranda, he put there his son, the only son, was suffering and going to die. All of you know our Gautama Buddha. Every day after his resting or sleep, he will wake up and then observe or survey the world. Gautama Buddha do this. Survey the whole world, whether anyone need his help or not. On that morning, the Buddha arise from a deep meditation of compassion. In his net of knowledge, he saw this young Brahmin was at the veranda suffering. He knew that he will die. This young Brahmin will die. Out of compassion, the Buddha went to Savatthi for Armstrong. Armstrong, on the way, the Buddha went to his house at Savatthi and stood near the door. And sent an image, same look like him, to this Matta Kundali. He was sleeping and was very pain. The time going to come to pass away, he saw this Buddha with compassion, devotion and faith, saddha. He passed away. No one can help, very young. And then the rebirth took place in Devaloka as a Deva. So what happened? The father took this body, son, and went to cemetery to bury. After burying the son, every day he go and cry, worry, cry. Now he cry, you see? Cry. Whole day he go there and cry. He cry, my own son. Why like this? Then the Deva, the son who born as a Deva, observed this, what the father doing. It is too late. It took a transformation as a old man. And he came to the cemetery, he sit another far distance. So the father was crying and crying. So this man approached, actually was the son, approached the father, asked, why you are crying? So the father said, I'm crying because I lost my only son. I'm crying, what to do? So this father asked this man, why are you crying? He told, I'm crying I'm crying, I'm seeing the sun and the moon, and I'm trying to bring them, both of them, down to make a vehicle. He is crying for that. So this father told, stupid, how stupid I am. How can you do that? Because sun and moon, no one can bring down. So the man told, I'm crying because I can see something, but you crying that you cannot see. After a person dies, no one can see. You see, something meaningful, I'm crying, but you crying something meaningless. Later on, he changed his way of life, realized the Dhamma, and then he became a good Buddhist and a follower of the Buddha. And later on, he donated most of his wealth for the Buddha Dhamma and for the Sasana. Thank you very much.
Yes, that was the story. Do you know that this story you can also see around you? Perhaps you may also come across some people, some parents who are very wealthy. They only think in terms of money. They don't care of their children. This is one instance where the father was so rich, millionaire. But when the son was sick, the father could not be bothered. And the father left this boy outside the house. Do you know why he put him outside the house? Because if that boy is inside the house, what happens when his relatives or when his friends or when monks come to see him? Then the father thinks that we will have to invite the people inside the house and we will have to serve them something. And would be a big nuisance, give a lot of problem. So his idea was live under any circumstances in our life. If we have mindfulness and if we are able to apply the Dhamma, and this is the purpose for which you have come, you brave the rains to come on Friday, every Friday night. When you come to know the Dhamma, that is the first step. The next thing is, when you have some knowledge, some understanding, then the next step in your spiritual life, to progress in your spiritual life, is it's a natural thing that will happen. Some people come to Dhamma talks again and again, but they take a longer time for them to progress. But those who have that wisdom, those who have the quality, the sincerity to know what the teachings is, and then the question will arise in the mind, how am I able to apply the teachings? How to apply the Dhamma? Well, what you did just now was right. That is how you apply the Dhamma. Don't allow your mind, watch, don't allow your mind to flutter here and there. When we come to listen to Dhamma, if the mic goes off, even if there is no monk, then the Dhamma talk is cancelled. Then what do? You get upset in your mind. You think, wasted my time. Do you think like that? Would you think like that? You ask yourself. You know yourself best. If that happens, then still you need to practice a little bit harder. Put more effort. But if you are able to maintain your cool and be able to, whatever circumstances that arises, if the teacher is not around, if the talk is not, then you are able to maintain your calm, you're peaceful, you're collected, you're not so much bothered, and you can go somewhere and then listen to the Dhamma inside. Train the mind. You can learn the Dhamma from outside, from inside. And that is how you should learn. In the Satipatthana Sutta it says, Antova Bhaitava. You develop your mindfulness, your skills in developing your awareness, both inside and outside. Outside, by way of listening, by way of seeing how people conduct themselves, you can learn. Some people like just to point out at others' mistakes, others' faults, others' misbehavior, misconduct. But they have not trained to look inside. So remember, the true practice of Dhamma begins with looking both inside and outside, not only outside. When you look at your children, or when you look, husband always try to correct the wives, or wife try to correct the husband, right? Parents like to try to correct the children. You must do that, you must not do this, you must do that, you must do that, right? But children also like to correct their parents. After listening to the Dhamma, they go back and they say to the parents, this is not, you should not do this, you should not do that, you should not do this. This is not Buddhism, this is Buddhism, like that. Then arguments start. But if you are really skillful in the practice of Dhamma, you must know how to make use of whatever occasions that arise and apply the Dhamma there and then. It's a teaching. Before you try to point out and correct another person's mistakes, Look inside you. Right? The moment you look inside, you will see that if you still have similar faults, similar mistakes, similar weakness, or if not that particular weakness, you have some other weakness that perhaps your children or your husband, your wife may have some other stronger qualities, better qualities. So look inside. And sometimes by looking inside, you will see there are certain mistakes that people make again and again, again and again. Because the root, the cause, is very deep-rooted. It's not easy to overcome. And when you look inside, and if you see that you still are not able to overcome that, then you will, in the wish to correct others, when that thought to correct others arises, you will do so in a very compassionate way, because you understand how difficult it is. Even if you have overcome, even if you do not have those unwholesome tendencies, because you have managed to overcome them, when you look inside you, you will find that how much effort, how difficult it was for you to overcome those bad habits. So, when you want to instruct, when you want to tell others, you will do so with lots of compassion, with kindness, with understanding. You will not get angry. This is the way how. In fact, the Dhamma is the teachings of the Buddha is to guide, to pave the way for one another to grow in life, to develop, not only physically, but mentally, more spiritually. This is what is meant by Mano Pubbang Gama Dhamma Mano Sitta Mano Maya. That mind is the forerunner of all events, all phenomena. Mind is the chief. How do you know your body? How do you see things around you? How do you hear sounds? How do you smell? How do you taste? How do you feel things? How do you think? All these functions that you perform all the time, throughout the day, through your eyes, your ear, your nose, your tongue, your body, and your mind. The mind is in the forefront. The mind is the forerunner of all these events of seeing. You cannot only see things with your physical eye. Can you see this? What is this? You know what this is? Somebody will say glass. Somebody will say mug. What do you say? You all have eyes, right? And the physical structure of your eyes is such that they are all similar. And how is it that when you describe this object, you all describe in different ways? You use different terms, different words, different... That is why we say that you don't see only with your physical eye. The mind. What happens is this. When a physical object, such as a glass, comes into contact with your eye, with the sensitive part of the eye, the retina, then certain impulse, the impulse sends the message to the brain, to certain part of the brain. And then the message, once the message is relayed, then you become conscious very quick. The phenomena is very quick. You become conscious of the object that you see, because this object, this visual object, is now converted into a mental image in your mind. This is the work of the mind. Every thought that arises in your mind, for you to say that this is a glass, this is a mug, that means you have already a thought in the mind. Right? Thought in the mind. And you see that thought, how fast the thought works. The thought works and then it produces the speech. So, the thoughts, the mind, activities, the mind, every thought there are different ingredients in every thought. What we call mental factors. Mental factors, cetasika. In the study of Abhidhamma, some of you have heard about Abhidhamma, you heard? In the study of Abhidhamma, what is real in this world is classified into 4 groups. Rupa, Chitta, Cetasika, Nibbana. These 4 things are real. All other things are conditioned. They arise just delusion, the mind. Form, they are materials. They are real in the sense that you are able to experience them. You can experience earth elements, right, in the form of hardness or softness. That's how you experience earth elements. You can experience water element. How do you experience water element? Some of you are experiencing it now. Stickiness. When you sweat, that's right, right? Then you experience some stickiness. That's the cohesiveness of the water. Otherwise, how do you know water? It is through this characteristic. You use the term wet. I'm wet. How do you know you are wet? How do you know you are wet? Because your clothes start to cling onto your body, right? That's how you know I'm wet. And that stickiness, sticking to the body, that's what you call cohesion, cohesiveness. That's a property of the water element. That's how we come to know of water element. And if you develop your mindfulness, just this water element, if you sweat, perspire, just watch water element. The stickiness is just there. You know that water. You don't get upset. You will not react, understand. But if you are not mindful, if your awareness is not strong, then you feel very uncomfortable. And you will react to it. Just know the elements. Wind element, gaseous elements in your body. How do you know that there is gaseous elements in your body? How do you experience this wind element in your body? By what? Movements. By movements. Wind is just a word, right? Wind. But how do you experience wind element? You experience it by movement. When we ask you to watch your breath, you observe certain movements. Whether it be here or whether it be your abdomen, you can observe the movement. Right? You experience the wind, the circulation through the fan. How do you experience that? When you observe the movement. How do you experience the movement? You have hair on your skin. That's the function of the hair on your skin. Right? Any slight movement, it begins, your hair starts to move, vibrate, and then there are nerves endings there. You sense the movement of it. Right? So that is how you become aware. Fire or heat element, the temperature, the heat of the body, sometimes hot, sometimes cold. You can experience them in as much as you are able to experience these basic elements, Rupa, Dhatu, we say they are real. Right? Chitta, mind, can also be experienced. Chitta Sikha, mental factors that arises. In every thought that arises, they are conditioned by those mental factors. 5 mental factors are found in every thought. There are many other mental factors also, but 5 are common in every thought. What are these 5 mental factors? They are called Phassa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Manasikara. Chetana, Manasikara. 5. Phassa is contact. It's the mind, mental contact. Phassa. conditions, feeling, Vedana. Sanya is the perception, your knowing, your ability to cognize, your ability to remember. Because you have seen something like this before, and you have learned that this is called a mug, a glass, then when you see it again, immediately the mental activity, contact arises where there is consciousness. As soon as there's this object in front of you, there's your eye is still functioning, the eye base is functioning, and consciousness arises. When these three things arise, then it conditions the mental, the mind, activities to arise, contact, mental contact, there is mental contact, then that feeling arises, then sanya or perception, ability to recognize, and then cetana. Cetana is volition. That is how karma starts forming. Cetana arises, and throughout there is the element of manasikara or attention to it. Because you must give attention, the mind must have the attention to these things. So these are actually small, like in the mind, if you find, there are small atomic particles like that, right? In a single thought, there are other small atoms, particles. And there is this group of 5 factors. And these 5 factors, when they are activated, they function, they convert any object, physical object, they convert it to a mental image in the mind. That is how you come to know. That is how you can see certain things. That is how you recognize people. That is how you hear sounds and you're able to recognize this sound, that sound. Right? And similarly, smell. You don't only smell with your nose. The mind. The mind is the forerunner. This is the meaning of the mind is the forerunner. And every thought that arises, you find that the 5 aggregates are there. What are the 5 aggregates? You know the 5 aggregates? Panchakanda. Rupa, Rupa Kanda, Vedana Kanda, Sanya Kanda, Sankhara Kanda, Vijnana Kanda. These are the 5 aggregates. Now, this is a more subtle teaching, but it's a very important aspect in order to understand the true nature of yourself. The purpose of Buddhist meditation, the purpose of doing good, the purpose of avoiding evil and purifying the mind is eventually to realize the true nature of one's self, the true nature of one's own being. When you understand his being, you will begin to understand that in reality there is no real person there is no real being, there is no real self within you. Then you are only made up of elements, of physical elements, like earth elements, water elements, heat, fire elements, and wind elements. These are the physical side. Then there are also mental energies. Mental energies. These mental energies are the form of feeling.